John, how are you today? Happy Sunday morning.
Funny finding you in my basement.
Yeah, wow, it's strange.
Sitting here behind a table with a tablecloth and a microphone.
It's just one of those things. The front door was open, so I just kind of
Just
walked
help
right
yourself.
in.
Came right in.
Just came right in.
Yeah, so what's going on? What are we doing here?
Well, welcome back to the Rockstar Principals podcast.
Hey, wow, how about that?
This is episode 115. And
which, it makes perfect sense, the number 115, the transition from audio to video, and the long history of that. I have no idea.
Yeah, I was 150. It's a multiple of 5.
Okay, yeah, that works.
Kind of
Nice, that's what, when you said nice clean break, that's what you meant? It was a multiple of 5. That
yeah,
makes sense.
that's all I have, really. I want to pop open a Diet Pepsi.
Oh, potential sponsor.
You never know.
That would be big.
You never know. So, in all seriousness, John and I have been talking over the past few months, and for those of you who know anything about podcasts, you obviously know that there's a lot of work that goes into putting on a podcast. So, from an editing perspective, from a recording perspective, and I mean, from a financial perspective too. You have to pay for the podcast hosting service, you know, and the stuff that kind of goes along with that, website fees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, not that we've ever looked to get rich or like really make any money off the podcast, but as we were looking at it, we kind of realized that for the product that we produce,
right,
we're putting out too much money, essentially.
Right.
You
exactly.
know, we're educators. We do very well. I mean, I'm
Rockstar's principles are in the red.
yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually transition from the podcast hosting world to YouTube Live and the YouTube experience.
And I have no idea how any of this works. So, just like the podcast, actually. So, it's no different. My thinking initially was, too, that, you know, just to kind of spice things up a little bit, you know, getting the 7-year itch after all this time.
It's been a long time. 2013.
After all these, you know, you've been doing this a few years, and over the last year or so, it's kind of tapered off a little bit. And I thought if we brought something different to the table, kind of might help recharge the batteries here, get us pumped about it, get us doing it more regularly. And it was an excuse to be in my basement. I mean, because my basement is awesome, as you can see.
This is true.
So, it kind of always kind of felt like there was an opportunity there for us to do something that, again, not to, you know, we're not going to go on tour. We're not going to, you know, we're not going to get Diet Pepsi as a sponsor. I hate to break it to you.
Probably not.
But, you know, to try to monetize it a little bit to at least cover the expense of putting out the podcast itself. So, it made sense to me. Yeah,
and I think one of the things we also talked about was we've been working so hard over the past couple of years to maximize the types of learning we're now doing at our schools that we don't want anything getting in the way. So when you look at the time involved from, you know, just the editing perspective, you know what I mean, or maintaining a website, things like that, it's hard. So in order to bring a more quality product as well, we cut that out. We go live, and then it's there for posterity. Now, some of you now watching are saying, oh no, I listen to the Rockstar Principles when I drive in the morning. Well, you can listen to YouTube videos in your car as well.
Yep.
Right? Now, you have to have YouTube open on your phone to listen, which is really no different than opening the podcast app and playing the podcast. The difference is you'll be safer because you can't text and do other things while you're listening to YouTube, okay? Unless you're a YouTube Premium member, $9.99 a month. For YouTube Premium members, you can actually
put a plug in for YouTube. Trying to butter up to the new bosses, right?
That's right. Maybe they'll notice. Hey, what's the saying? Here's the new boss, same as the old boss, or whatever. Yeah. So if you are a premium member, you can actually download and or listen outside the app as well. But again, you know, everyone's driving safely these days and trying to minimize distractions. So.
And as difficult as it might be to tear yourself away from looking at these two beautiful faces. You know, don't watch the video while you're driving because there's really not much to see.
Nope.
It's not like, you know, we're going to be doing something where we're going to draw your attention. If we did, we would give you fair warning. You know, we'd say, pull over, this is something we're going to show you, you got to see. So having it playing in the background to me is, like you said, just as easy as if you were listening to a podcast. You subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Yep. You
get notifications every time. We put a new video up. Every time we go live, you get a notification. When there's a new video saved, you would get a notification. So we're going to kind of try and push the whole subscribe to the Rockstar Principles podcast on YouTube. Try and go that direction more often and see if it pans out. So, you know, spread the word. we'll try and spread the word through Twitter and everything and get people knowing about it. And we'll see how it works. So hopefully this is the beginning of a new format for the Rockstar Principals, right?
You mentioned Twitter, so just to kind of jump in on the Twitter piece, we've spent about it's almost September, so I guess about 4 months now purging our Twitter account, and a lot of this was we cater to a specific audience, principals, educational leaders, and teachers to some degree. However, our Twitter account had grown over, and there were weeds, and it needed weeding. So Twitter themselves actually started over the summer doing this work too, which actually coincided real well for what we were doing. So we literally eliminated tens of thousands over the course of 4 months.
I'm gonna look and see what we're up to as far as followers go.
Yeah, I think we're cut down to around 20,000 now. So all of and if you're on Twitter, they'll have these bots that will follow you over and over, and then trying to get essentially other followers and trying to get influence out there, social media influence. So we're down to about
20,000, 19.6 followers.
Perfect. Took a long time to get there. You can only delete 500 Twitter followers per day.
Oh, really?
And then Twitter helped us as well when they went through and purged as well. So inactive accounts, accounts that never post, clearly accounts that were advertising aimed, they went. Now, is it possible we lost some of you? It might be. We might have.
Especially if you hadn't put a picture as your avatar yet.
That was a big one too.
You deserve to be lost, actually, if you haven't done that.
Yeah. Why are you on Twitter? So anyway, if we did lose you, just please follow us back. If you're a legit listener, follower into the educational field, we didn't intend to do that, but I think the idea is kind of we want it to be an intimate experience again, in terms of what the audience looks like, what you see when you come to our webpage and our followers and things like that. So
I think 20,000 is pretty impressive. After that purge, I mean, you saw a lot of people lose a significant number of followers. Yeah. So it's pretty impressive to still have that amount.
It's nice that they did it, because it gives us a clearer picture too of where the audience really is in terms of demographics and a lot of other things. So all that being said, that kind of brings us to where we are today, getting ready to start a new school year, which is super exciting. I almost forgot. There's crying audience members still, because they're saying, well, wait a minute, your theme song doesn't play. We don't hear your theme song before the show. Fear not. The theme song is being uploaded as a separate video on YouTube. Our opening to the show, you'll be able to listen to it anytime you want. Just you'll click the button.
Yeah. But we can always play the audio while we're sitting here too, maybe for a future podcast. Just kind of have it playing from a phone.
From a phone. We should do that actually too. Why not? And then there's still people crying because they're like, well, wait a minute. One of my favorite parts of the show were the throwback commercials. Fear not. The throwback commercials we found on YouTube ripped the audio and would play on the show. So we're going to create a separate playlist on YouTube, and we're just going to have, it's going to be liked videos essentially, and we're going to put each episode a couple of throwback YouTube videos you can watch in that playlist of old commercials and advertisements.
Sounds perfect. Win-win.
Everybody wins, really.
Awesome.
You know who really wins?
Who wins?
YouTube.
Well, YouTube, yes. Yeah, that's safe to say.
Yeah.
So you were saying, back to school time.
Yeah, if you've been following, if you've been watching, you know that last year we had a really cool experience with our teachers to start the year, rented out the movie theater, saw Tony Wagner and Ted Dintersmith's Most Likely to Succeed documentary, all in our approach at the middle level to really make learning more authentic, to get serious about what really matters again. And to do that, we're blessed to be in a district that allows us to try different things each year. So John's group, as you know, piloted the capstones. We piloted changing our award ceremony formats and acknowledging a different set of characteristics as opposed to academics. And as we now move into year 2, after the gangbusters interview we had with Ted Dintersmith, which was awesome.
Yes.
I mean, geez, go back and listen to that one if you haven't, because you're missing out if you haven't heard that. So now we're embarking at Downingtown Middle on the capstones, and you've got a ton of stuff going on as well in terms of where we continue to head. So it's just we want the excitement to continue as we continue to focus on pushing the pendulum, as you said in your blog post. You can see that where?
Rockstarprincipals.net.
Yeah, check out our blogs. So we're just thrilled to get a new school year started and to keep doing what we're doing. So your article, John, that you found speaks to all of that.
Right. So thinking back to last year and kind of the things Nick mentioned, and even both of us making a point when we spoke to our parents at back to school night and at various events about how we were going to push away from the whole concept of PSSA test prep. PSSA, the Pennsylvania Standardized Testing System. And that, we were still going to teach to the standards. We were still going to focus on academic rigor, obviously. But that we were not going to spend, what we had done traditionally in the past was spend any available time, we would try to cram in prep activities. We would do test prep stuff, whether it was through those workbooks or, the teacher created stuff or whatever. We were always, trying to address where students were, where we were, and where students were struggling when it came to PSSAs. That's all embedded in our content now, and we're going to get through what we can with our content. But the free time, for lack of a better term, that we have is spent doing other things. Like we said, our capstone project. You guys started doing some clubs and stuff, and trying to get back to like the whole why we got into education and what it to me is the strength of middle schools is the whole relationship and rapport with kids and authentic learning and doing things that really gave kids a reason to be there. We were fortunate again that we have awesome kids. We have an awesome community where they jumped right in. I mean, they were on board. There was questions and so forth, but it wasn't really hard to sell the kids and the parents on the idea that we weren't going to do this stuff anymore. So this article I stumbled upon, probably on Twitter, was on a website called Chalkbeat, which is a pretty cool title for a website. It probably focuses all on education. And the title of the article is Pressuring Schools to Raise Test Scores Got Diminishing Returns. New study of No Child Left Behind finds. So the whole question, of, does, as it opens, does tightening the screws on schools and teachers lead to benefits for students? It's been something I think in education we've been saying, not just we, but all educators have been saying for some time, that the whole idea of, this pressure, this top-down pressure, is really not going to move the needle a whole lot. And I think that's what kind of led us, and I know for me at least, we did all of this prep stuff, right? We did all of this, we've had all this focus, and I feel like even we didn't do as much as what I saw other schools doing. Other schools doing like the pep rally and the countdown to the days of the tests and, trying to put all of this focus, as the PSSAs being the penultimate occasion of the school year, if I use that term correctly. And that it wasn't moving the needle very much. So we were looking at, before and after, and it wasn't worth it, as you say all the time. Is it worth the squeeze? Is the juice worth the squeeze? And that's what led us to move away from it, was we were feeling like this time and pressure that we're putting on ourselves really isn't paying off in the long run. So a study was done where they found, in fact, that continuing to raise the bar, they focused. It's good to have a bar. Having a bar is good. Having a standard, they compared states that previous to No Child Left Behind didn't have any kind of bar, and to ones that did have, and they saw a big jump. Schools that had no bar, no standard prior to No Child Left Behind, post No Child Left Behind saw good increases, which makes sense. If there's no bar to jump over, you're just going to walk right on through. So having a bar is good, but continuously raising that bar,
arbitrarily,
what they're saying, doesn't pay off. The results are very, very insignificant, if at all. They say the results suggest that ratcheting up the test-based accountability pressures alone is not enough to sustain improvements in student achievement. And I want to mention the researchers Vivian Wang, Cody Wing, David Martin, and Anindita Krishmanchari.
Wow.
Put a paper together and kind of examining the whole No Child. They went all the way back to 2001, 2002 when No Child Left Behind first came in. and looked at it over the course of that. It's a pretty substantial time frame to talk over it over that much time. So interesting to see that there's now more and more research coming out that kind of supports this notion.
Well, that's also similar to the research that came out showing that the race to the top was a failure,
right,
as well, for all the same reasons that and the standards piece. I don't think anyone ever argued that. You know what I mean? The
right.
part of No Child Left Behind, to me, that was good, was it established at least a baseline for some standards that are important in core subject areas and etc., along with putting an emphasis and a focus on subgroups that have otherwise been ignored, right? So we know,
which they also mentioned
as a positive,
was a positive,
yeah.
Right?
The problem becomes when you then try to make it a objective science when what it is an subjective social science. Sorry, I'm having trouble getting the words out. You can't say, even in nature, right? Can you actually say, okay, so from ages 2 to 3, you should grow exactly this many inches. From ages 14 to 15, you should grow exactly this many inches. And if you don't, you failed. Well, wait, it doesn't work like that. It comes in fits and bursts, just like learning does, just like the acquisition of reading skills. And the worst thing that happened is when they arbitrarily put that 2014 number up, saying, oh my God, all right. Students must be 100% proficient by 2014, and then you saw all the comparisons come out, like every dentist must be 0 cavities by 2014, every hospital must be 0 deaths, 100% survival rate by 2014. That's not real life. You can't put, you can't put objective measures into a subjective field. Not to say it's not a great goal, but that's not how things work.
Well, again, it goes back to having a bar, the positives of actually having something that you're working toward. They use the term accountability plateau, which I kind of like. It's just basically saying that when you implement an accountability system, there's an initial bump, but after that, continued gains are hard to come by. And there's another, somebody from the University of Southern California, Morgan Polikoff, who's studying standards and accountability systems, and that was kind of his emphasis in saying, again, that you just kind of plateau, which makes sense. We all know that. We've all seen that. That it's and in fact that when you do make a substantial gain, you're treated with suspicion.
Right.
Which to me kind of reinforces the idea. Oh, well, how is it that you all of a sudden jumped up 7-8 points? And then suddenly you get monitored by the state, and suddenly people start asking questions. It goes right against it, right? The whole idea is, well, you're trying to get me to do this thing, and I did it, and now you're going to look at me like I'm a suspect in something because I did what you told me to do. Which to me tells me that even they know that you're not going to make those kinds of gains.
And let's also, so we're saying we agree that it's good to have a bar. It's good to have standards. But let's also acknowledge, which hopefully we all do, what those standards really what these tests really measure. A standard is the floor and not the ceiling, right? It's the base of what you really need to know from a content perspective, right? But it's not the higher level learning up here. It's not the conceptual stuff, which is great. And then it also speaks to the Ted Dintersmith quote, which is in both his books, Most Likely to Succeed with Wagner and then What Schools Could Be, which is standardized tests, right, measure what standardized tests measure and nothing more, right? Standardized tests are really good at measuring what standardized tests want to measure, but they can't get to what he refers to and what we really have emphasized on 21st, and again, that's a term that's been thrown out so much at this point.
Yeah.
Instead of saying 21st century skills, we'll say this. If you want to get a job and have a successful career in the economy today, which is ever changing, you need to possess the 4 C's. Communication, the ability to communicate, the ability to collaborate, to think critically, and creatively problem solve. Those are skills that are not content-related skills. Because your field is going to be, at this point, global, and it's going to be intertwined with so many other fields. All of them. So if we're sending our middle school kids off to the high school, and they can just pass the PSSA test, or the whatever your standardized test is called, but they can't do those other things, possess those 4 skills, we have failed immeasurably. And it goes back to another article we talked about the prep schools in DC that are eliminating AP courses.
Right.
I got news for you at AP. You better start getting on the bandwagon soon, because the price of college is through the roof
Yeah, we'll be
anymore.
buying stock in AP
Yeah,
anytime
and
in the near future.
you're measuring it's the old standard, because if you take an AP course, right, you have to fly through that curriculum by whatever week in May you're taking that test, and you have to deliver on the content. Now that's not to say some of those tests don't measure critical thinking and well, critical thinking may
And
to
then
a
you're
degree.
hoping that the college you want to go to is going to accept that.
It, right? But I think more importantly though is, so the honors AP government, I'm sorry, the AP government class, right, versus the honors government class. The honors government class might not cover all the content, but I guarantee you they're having much deeper discussions and spending more times on things that the students in that room decided were important, as opposed to AP,
because
where you
it's
have
not
to say,
regimented. It's not as regimented as an AP class is.
Times they're changing, and I'm glad we're on the.
Song. Make a song out of that, wasn't there?
Dylan, maybe was that?
Yeah, it was.
But I feel like I'm happy we're on the wave. We got on that wave early.
Yeah.
Because as it's starting to crest and crash a little bit, we're going to be whatever you call that spot the surfers are in when it looks cool.
The cool spot.
The cool spot.
We're going to be the cool surfer spot.
But it is nice seeing these studies actually confirming this stuff now.
And the last point I just want to make sure I mention that they make is the fact that No Child Left Behind didn't have any teeth to it. Like it talked all about all of these things that were going to happen if your school did not improve and didn't meet these, and it really didn't. Like they would, you would be in red, like you would have this moniker attached to your school, and everybody would look down upon you, but there weren't wholesale changes. If you remember the law, they talked about changing the leadership, changing the curriculum, someone from the outside coming in and running the school, and it happened on very, very few occasions that it actually got to that point.
Yeah, and it wasn't funded.
Right, and that's right. Yeah. So if you're going to come out, just like when you're teaching a class or when you're leading a school, if you're going to come out and say that if you do these things, here's what the consequences are going to be, and then these things happen and the consequences don't happen, people are going to start going, oh, what difference does it make?
Yeah,
why do I care? Why
there's
bother?
No actual consequences, right?
So
hey, it was what we're preaching, a little bit. So again, if the federal government is going to pass federal mandates to states and not fund them, then what is the point of having a federal Department of Education?
Careful now.
1980, right? Everyone's like, well, it's since the 1800s. No, 1980 is when the Federal Department of Ed was established. Now look, I'm not saying at all a lot of what they do from a Title IX perspective and a civil rights perspective isn't needed, because there's a lot of states that won't otherwise enact. But the department has tremendously overstepped their bounds.
It's funny you bring up the Department of Education, and now we're going to bird walk like we usually do.
We did.
Because I saw something the other day, and I meant to send it to you. I meant to text it to you, because I literally LOL'd, as the kids say. I laughed. So I was scrolling through Twitter, and it was a quote from DeVos, Betsy DeVos. And again, we're not going to get into politics or anything like that, but she was making a case for other options for schools. Okay, other types of schools, as opposed to just the traditional publicly funded school system. And she was talking about how we need to consider all options and things like that, right? And her quote, I'm going to butcher, but it was something along the lines of, we need innovation. There's so many schools that are doing this, have been doing the same thing for 100 years and haven't changed things up. We need schools that are doing things innovative. And I'm like, holy cow, Ted Dintersmith and Betsy DeVos agree.
Yeah.
And talking about two polar opposites, and I know Dintersmith is no fan of hers.
Right.
Two completely polar opposites, both making the same point, that we need to stop following this 100-plus-year-old model and start doing things different and innovative.
And again, it takes me. This winter when I was very fortunate to get to go and be a part of a federal Department of Education meeting, where the topic essentially was surrounding. It was supposed to be the impact that a guidance department, so guidance counselors, can have on student achievement and post-high school success. And the majority of the schools represented there, it was all standardized test driven, getting these kids to pass the SATs, and oh my god, I was cringing. every kid gets into a college acceptance.
Don't go down that road. Don't get me started.
And I won't, and I'm not. But that was like I was sitting there with the person who would come with me, and we're looking at each other like, man, we're 5 years past this. Like this is 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And we're in a different place right now. So it's fascinating to look at what still is important to some people.
Right.
And we've talked about that in numerous times.
65% of professions in the future are going to require a 4-year college degree. Why are we trying to send 100% of kids to college if only 65% of the professions are going to require a 4-year college degree?
Man, frustrating.
Very frustrating, but we're going to continue to push the pendulum, right? We're going to keep on trying to do new and innovative things, as I'm sure many of our viewers, oh wow, used to saying listeners,
listeners, viewers, people
are doing as well. And that's a good sign. I think there's more and more schools that are kind of beginning to buy in and starting to try to promote ideas like that, which is a good sign.
Okay, before we segue to a different topic.
Good, because I have a different topic that I want to talk about.
I'm going to do something really unprofessional.
What's that?
Since we're first time broadcasting, I'm just going to get up and walk behind the camera to make sure we're still live.
Okay.
Just for that crappy giggles.
I can kill time.
Okay.
I can do that.
All right.
Ready? Network time killing. So while Nick is doing that, he'll be right back. Hopefully, this is going to be really embarrassing if we aren't still live.
No, we're still live.
Okay, good. Phew. Wow, you just my heart skipped a beat there. So next, let's segue into a next topic because once again, as I was scrolling through Twitter, I discovered that we're doing a documentary.
Oh yeah. I forgot to mention that.
That's a really cool idea. We should talk about this. It's kind of embarrassing in front of all these people. We're rockstar principals are producing a documentary. I was like, wow, we're making a documentary.
Yeah.
That's a pretty interesting idea. Why don't you talk about it a little bit, Nick? While I listen.
Whoop. Okay, so I guess you would call this a new age documentary. Like, it's not like, well, even, oh my gosh, we're really on the cutting edge because Netflix documentaries are like the big thing now, which is still just a traditional documentary on Netflix. What we're doing is, you've heard John talk many times about the capstones. So last year, Lionville Middle, 7th and 8th graders did a capstone project. If you're familiar with Most Likely to Succeed, or you've been listening to our podcast, you know what that is, essentially. It was also a way to get rid of the final exams and things like that, which was good too. But the kids basically pursue a passion for over the course of a year and produce some type of product towards the end. It doesn't have to be a physical product, but they present to their peers, essentially. So we are now jumping into that world. We saw and watched and dialogued with John's teachers, and now we're launching into that world ourselves this year. So one of our history teachers, Mr. Diercole, Silvio, and I had been talking for a long time. Like, we just get into like those good educational conversations, like, oh man, I'm gonna try this. Does this work? Are the kids getting something out of this? Like, is this really where we should be? And as we were chatting, and meanwhile the capstones are coming right at the same time. We were like, what if over the course of a year, right? We reflect just over. It could be a minute, could be 3 minutes, could be whatever. Just once per day, 180 school days. Reflect on the teaching that took place in the classroom. Like, and we were like, okay, a journal, whatever, it could be a cool, like, supervision and observation model. And that's kind of like where the idea, and I'm like, yeah, and I could come in a couple times a week, and then we could compare notes and see what everything looks like at the end of the year. But then here come capstones. And we're like, wait a minute. All right, if the kids are going to be doing this, shouldn't we do it? Like, let's model for the kids. So instead of doing it like on paper and keeping it a secret, let's make a YouTube channel and let's put it out there. So why not? So it's like a year-long live documentary, essentially, where if you want to follow it, you're going to see Sil, after his lessons, basically sitting in front of the camera, kind of like Blair Witch style, talking about what worked and what didn't. I'll come in a couple times a week, film from that perspective, give my reflections. When Sil thinks like he's at a team meeting that's like really good or something like that, we'll just turn the camera on, go live. If this is what we're talking about, this is what we're doing. Basically we're going to follow a teacher for a year. Now, not just any teacher, you know what I mean? This is a master teacher. I mean, he's all in. He's an Army vet, several tours in Afghanistan, really kind of gets what it's all about, loves history. understands the importance of relationship building with kids, wants kids to the four, like big proponent of the 4 C's and what they take with them. One of the other things that I've always been impressed with is Sol always says, and on top of all that stuff, we have to somehow find a way to help students understand the importance that their education has. So it's easy to take for granted we have to go to school every day.
Right.
But how many kids actually have an appreciation or a gratitude for the education they're getting and participating in through the course of those 12 years? So essentially, that's the whole project.
He's going to do one per day.
One per day.
One every day.
Yeah, one reflection per day. And my goal is going to be to get into his room 3 times a week for, it might be 5 minutes. Like not, it's not. This isn't. And the production value is just, quick.
Just him on his phone.
Just him on his phone.
Do it.
Yeah.
So
YouTube
what's
live
going to
videos.
happen if on a particular day he's frustrated with his boss and he's irritated?
It's all
awkward.
it's like Big Brother.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, it's not actually, because I could watch it. Like the Big Brother, I guess the other people don't see the videos other people make about them.
Yeah. True.
I'll fire him.
Wow, you still on record saying that.
Right.
You went there.
I can't do that.
No, that's really, really cool. I mean, I was excited when I saw it yesterday. And just thinking about the possibilities and how it's kind of a different idea, but you see, what it made me think of automatically, and what I'd like to talk about if we could for the pop culture segment later on, was the movie 8th Grade that came out this summer. Because it made me think about how, and you're right in talking about documentaries now and how they make them, and there's much less of a focus on production value and having it, be of a particular. It used to be more of an artistic lens, I think, in the production of a documentary.
Right.
And I think now it's more focused on, and I like it, at least the ones that I watch are more focused on, the meat and actually trying to get the details and the information and be informative and persuasive in many cases as well. But just to think that that's how easy it could be for somebody to kind of document that over the course of a year. Is there thoughts of kind of putting it all together at the end into one thing? Is that a possibility?
I guess it is. To me, that's
See
too
how it
overwhelming.
goes. See how it goes.
Yeah, like to think about.
I mean, I think there's potential there. You might have something that especially if you start seeing him pick up more and more followers, more and more people that are watching it. You may get like crowdsourced the idea of doing something like that.
Yeah, but I like the fact that it's all. And this is the beauty of technology. Like, this isn't some folder or electronic document. You know what I mean? Like, this is on YouTube.
Yeah.
And it's all in its space.
Right.
Here's our YouTube channel, and here's all of.
So you made a YouTube channel just for this.
Just for that.
Just for this. It's not off of ours,
Yep.
right?
Yep. So you just
That's very cool.
you just go to a separate site. You can, and then we from an organizational standpoint, we have like 4 different categories of what the videos would be titled.
Right.
So you'll have daily reflections with Mr. D, principal reflections outside the classroom. So because Sil coaches and does a whole bunch of activities, and then there's another one. Oh, home life. Like Sil thought it would be. I look at home. Like what happens? How does your teaching world go into your home life?
Right.
So those will be in their own boxes. So if you go, you can be like, oh, I'm just going to follow this one, or I'm interested in this. So but at the end, when it's done, you've got a compilation of a year in the life, basically, which is kind of cool.
Very cool. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool, especially for educators. So
we don't know how we're for the presentations and stuff, like for the capstone presentations, and as we get closer to the end, I'll be asking you about that. But I think we should have to. Sil and I should have to present just like the kids do.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see.
Yeah, it might be something that you add to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really cool idea. So, pop culture.
Pop culture.
Can we move on to that?
Yeah.
Okay. So this summer.
You saw the movie?
There was a movie came out this summer called 8th Grade. If you are an educator, regardless of grade level, I would say, if you are a parent, if you are someone who is interested in what's happening today, what the lens from a kid's viewpoint, I looked at it as like this generation's The Breakfast Club.
Really?
Is the way I viewed it, even though it was a very, very different way that it was transformed and transmitted, I guess, in that it really is. When I think back to The Breakfast Club when I was a kid, and that came out, and I saw that, and I was like, yeah, like that's exactly
Right.
what we're thinking. That's my life. That's showing you, I identified with multiple, not just one of the five,
Mm-hmm.
but different reasons, multiple characters in it. But for those of you who haven't heard this movie, it's called Eighth Grade. It's from a guy named Bo Burnham, who I had never heard of before, but I bet your kids have. Because speaking of YouTube, he's a big YouTube guy.
Okay.
Okay, and I hadn't heard of him, but when I mentioned it to my kids, my oldest daughter said, "Oh yeah, that's Bo Burnham's movie." And I'm like, "Who is that?" Like I had no idea who this guy was. So he's kind of a stand-up comedian. He's a YouTube channel. He wrote this movie from the viewpoint of an eighth grade girl.
Okay.
And it's about her life and what she experiences over the course of a couple of days. And she's finishing up eighth grade and moving on to high school. So it's about this this giant transition in her life. Think about think back to the time when you had your first day of high school. So it's all prior to her first day of high school, and it's the end of the school year, and then there's some things that happen over the course of the summer. Poignant, touching, innovative, like just so impactful. Just such an incredible movie that as people who work with eighth graders, okay, I'm taking my dad hat off for a moment, and just as someone who works with eighth graders, multiple times over the course of the movie, I'm like, oh yeah, that's spot on. That's right. That's spot on. I see it. Absolutely. That's so authentic. Just and the girl and her name's escaping me right now. The young lady that played the lead. Absolutely perfect. Spot on. As an eighth grader, it seemed like it was a documentary, and that's what kind of made me think about it, because it felt so real to me watching it. It seemed like it was a documentary. As a parent, again, I've got a 19-year-old and a 17-year-old and a 12-year-old, so I've been through eighth grade and I'm about to go through it again. Again, spot on. Her relationship with her dad, he's a single father, and just the relationship between the two of them, it's just there's like a scene at the dinner table, it's just the two of them. She's on her phone, she's got her headphones on, and he's trying to talk to her. He's trying to engage her in a conversation, and she's like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, and then she puts it back in, and she's looking at her phone, and he's trying to talk some more, and she, right, yeah, that's pretty cool, and like it's just so spot on. I couldn't get over how well done the movie was, and it was a smaller movie. It was only in selective theaters. It's probably not even in theaters anymore, but I'm sure it will be out, digitally on DVD in the very near future, and it is an absolutely must watch for anybody that's an educator or a parent. I would watch it with your kids if you're a parent. If they're 7th grade on up, there's some subject matter that's kind of awkward and uncomfortable. We watched it. My wife and I saw it in the theater with my 19-year-old and our 12-year-old. There's a couple times I was like, kind of like looking the other way.
Did you make the 19-year-old talk to the 12-year-old?
Yeah.
You cover that.
Yeah.
You can cover that.
But there was parts that were just outright hysterically funny too. I mean, things that were just really, really authentic, and it was great. It was fantastic, and I can't say enough about it, really, that people should check it out. Find this movie. If it's still in a theater by you, go and see it. But more importantly, when it comes out, I wouldn't view it in class. I wouldn't bring it into school and view it. But it's definitely something that, I think it gives you a better feel for what the experience of kids is like right now, what they're going through. It's the whole dealing with the digital component of it, and dealing with, anxiety and depression and friend groups and fitting in. It's just really, it shows you, and I say this all the time, about how I wouldn't have made it if I was a kid in 2018. Like if I was an 8th grader in 2018, I would have been a disaster, absolute disaster. I was bad enough when I was a kid in the 1980s. It shows you really how much they're really coping with, how much they're dealing with in trying to fit in, and it's gone well beyond the idea of just you're in the cool group and you're in the not cool group.
Right.
Which is what it was like when we were kids, right? You were either sat at the cool table at lunch, or you sat somewhere else. That was it. now there's so many different peer groups, and there's so many different ways of connecting and fitting in.
Yep.
The girl in the movie, the main character, she runs a video blog. She has a video blog of her own.
Okay.
That, you know, she talks each morning, but you know, one of the things that really, and then they talked about the social media component, and you know, she's taking selfies and posting them, but she takes like 100 selfies
Before she picks the one
and
she'll
she's
post.
scrolling through and trying to find which one she wanted, and then she eventually posts it, and she was like, oh, I just woke up, but she had put like makeup on and everything prior to it.
Yep.
So she was trying to, you know, get that. It was just fantastic. I can't say enough about it.
So you would say that they didn't, because and Breakfast Club it's a good comparison in the sense that they didn't broad stroke it like they.
Not at all. Would have been so easy. You know how movies take the easy way, right? They'll take the easy way, and it'll be, here's what the cool kids do,
Yep.
and here's what the kid that's the nerd or whatever, and how they have transformed and they become the cool kid, and they're able to show the cool kids, and didn't take that route at all. It was so authentic and so real, and you really, you know, I welled up a few times watching it just because I could see our kids in this kid. I could see my own children in this kid, and I could see our kids that we deal with each day in this kid. And all it did for me was like bolster the whole notion, the whole idea that we have to do, like we have to build relationships.
Yep.
We have to get to know these kids. We have to do everything we can to do this important work rather than focusing on, as we talked about earlier, the unimportant work of, you know, teaching to the test and everything. It's just fantastic. Really, really great movie. So check it out. I'm sure it'll be out soon on DVD or Blu-ray or digitally. Probably comes out first digitally, I would guess.
Yeah, probably
it's called
soon.
8th Grade, the movie 8th Grade. Watch some clips. Since you're on YouTube right now,
Watch them.
you can kind of, you know, when this is done, you can kind of search 8th Grade on YouTube, and you can probably see some promos for it.
And then maybe we'll add it to our liked video list, and then they could actually get it from our YouTube channel page.
I don't understand what you're talking about.
What are these lists you speak of? What are these things?
All right, anything else to cover?
No,
Anything else to
I
think about?
think episode 115.
Get off to a great school year, everybody. Good luck with your 2018-2019 school year. Ours starts tomorrow.
Yeah.
Looking forward to a great day tomorrow. Getting to begin to build those relationships and those rapport with our students, and have a great time and an awesome year.
Yeah.
Right?
Start off big day one. I got no inspirational quotes. Just
Yeah, they've heard them all before, right?
You guys have been there. You're vets.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you're brand new and you're really nervous.
So how do we end this?
Well, technically, I have to get up and go press the button again. So I'll do my exit, and you just kind of like wave and.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Say goodbye, Nick. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
watching, everybody. Don't forget,
cue up the
subscribe. Yeah, don't forget to subscribe.
Subscribe.
I've always wanted to do this. If you go down and you click subscribe down the bottom underneath the video right now you're watching on YouTube, click that subscribe button, and you'll get notified. And
Is
you'll
it
get to
under
see.
you?
I think it's on this side. Yeah, when I'm looking at it, it's on the bottom left corner.
Yeah,
isn't it?
so I think.
Yeah.
But in case it's on the
It's
bottom right.
Again, in the movie 8th Grade, she's like, don't forget to like and subscribe, and she does those things. Yeah, whoa, watch me button that. All right, don't knock anything over. Tune in next time to the Rockstar Principals video podcast. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, one small issue. I'm not really sure how to stop it.
Oh no, we're just gonna keep this on forever.
Ever.
So this is my basement. You're going to, be able to just watch my basement for good. Still on?
Oh, no, I figured it out now. Hold on.
Okay. Bye, everybody.